small and select crowd this evening. I think everybody's going to get to go to, maybe we'll ask you some questions. Certainly everybody gets to ask a few questions. I just wanted to say a few words before we get started, and I think Nigel's going to say a few words as well. And then the purpose of the evening is going to be to open it up to you to ask some questions. It's a bit of a first for us as well. I'd like to welcome everybody who's watching us on the webcast. It's the first time that we've done this. We've got people watching us hopefully all around the world. And we've also got the facility to my left for questions to come in on Twitter as we're going along. So what I might do is, to be fair on the people who are watching sort of outside the ground, I'll take questions as we go from the screen as well. Hope those people who are here have all enjoyed a pint of Worthingtons. If you haven't, that's one on the house for you here. We're grateful to Worthingtons for sponsoring this evening. The purpose of having the forum tonight is we're approaching the halfway point in the season. We're 9 games into the Premiership, and at Christmas we'll be there halfway. So we thought it was time to take stock of the season that we've had to date and answer any questions which you might have. It's a good time to pause to reflect. I think the last time, we probably got some people. Have we got anybody who was here with us in July when we held the last fans forum? Yeah, quite a few. Well, welcome back. We've come a long way since then, haven't we? I'm just going to remind you where we were in the dark days of July. We'd lost our head coach, we'd endured our longest losing streak as a professional club, and we finished 9th in the Premiership, which is the lowest that we finished in the professional era. So they were dark times, and at that time Nigel sat up in front of us and he gave us a measured view about how he would set about reversing our fortunes. And I think at that point all the believers in the crowd had cause to hope. But I think you could all say now that 5 months later he's gone way beyond the expectations that he set that evening, and we're all very grateful for everything that the whole team, well, to my right and everybody who's not here tonight as well, has achieved in that time. I'm just going to recap as well to set the tone where we are now. Well, we started our new era with a rousing performance in the JP Morgan 7 series, and Nigel and his team set out their stall early on. They came into that tournament wanting to win it, and what a show we had that night at Kingsholm. If you weren't here that night, well, I hope that we're going to have another Sevens event back here next summer, and it really was an excellent evening here. And then we just got pipped in the final at Bath, where, you know, I think probably we thought we were home and dry at half time, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. But it really set out the stall for the exciting rugby that the team were planning to play, and it raised all our expectations. Premiership campaign started with a battling defeat that first day against Northampton, and I think we all went home thinking, well, that's a very organised Northampton team. They've been together for a long time, but we saw plenty to look forward to in the Gloucester side, and that's how it turned out. Since then we've only lost 1 match, and we're now sitting here 1 point off the top of the table with 6 wins, 1 draw and 2 losses to our name, which is excellent performance. We've also had 2 from 2 in the Anlam Cup and 1 from 2 in the LV Cup, with just that narrow defeat at Ospreys, which I'm sure you might get some questions about later on, Nigel, if you're very lucky. Now tonight's really a night to talk about the coaching and everything that's happening on the rugby field. If you've got questions about the club, I'll be very happy to take them. But I really think this is a chance to ask the guys to my right all about how they coach and what they're doing at the moment. Also, as usual, we've got a roving microphone, which is going to be handled, as always, by Duncan, and he's going to be coming around when we get going. And I'm going to try and keep things moving, but take 1 question at a time. So if you can, when you want to ask a question, if you put your hand up, and I'll try and make sure we take people in order. I think with the number of people we've got here tonight, we should be able to get through everybody's questions. Introduce the panel before we get started. I think everybody will be familiar with everybody who's sitting on up here on the dais, but just in case you're not, immediately to my right, Paddy Hanson, who's in charge of strength and conditioning for the club. Then obviously Nigel Davis, our director of rugby in the middle, and then Carl Hogg, team manager and forwards coach, to Nigel's right hand side. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Nigel to say a few words.
Thanks, Chris, and welcome everybody here tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. What you see in front of you here is what I would qualify as a senior coaching group at Gloucester Rugby at this point. Obviously, myself as director of rugby, Carl is my assistant and has responsibilities for forwards amongst other things, and Paddy Hanson, who's head of our strength and conditioning. And the 3 of us as I say, are the senior coaches within the team right now. We have a coaching staff who work alongside us as well. And you know, what we achieve, we will achieve together, and we're a group and we're a team, and you know, that's very important that everybody understands that. In terms of tonight, we'll be as open and as honest as we can be. There will obviously be some subjects that we won't be able to touch on or speak on because of confidentiality, and we need to show our integrity, particularly where players are concerned. But everything else, you know, we'll try and answer as openly and honestly as we can. So feel free to ask all of us, any of us, questions. We're all in this together as a team, and you know, we work very closely together. And part of any success that we've had to date has been the fact that we work very well as a team, off the field as much as on the field. So we'll open the floor.
Okay, thanks very much, Nigel. Let's go straight into the questions. Anybody got anything they'd like to ask? Gentleman down here in the blazer, Duncan. Duncan gets a good workout tonight. Paddy will be pleased with this.
Don't need to go to the gym this week. This is one for Nigel. At the last fans forum, you talked about trying to create as a coaching team a Gloucester style of rugby, something that you felt could be seen to be a particular template or a particular style that would be associated with Gloucester. If that's the case, how far do you think you've got towards achieving that goal of getting the squad thinking the way that you're thinking, playing the way that you're playing, and expressing your brand of how you want Gloucester to be playing rugby?
Well, I think we've certainly started the journey there. I also said that we would start the season being pretty focused on a number of areas in our game and look to build and add to that. What we've been able to achieve, I firmly believe, is that the areas that we focused on at the start of the season and coached into the team and worked into the team, we are certainly starting to see those things come through, and they revolve around some of the basic building blocks of the game. And what we see at this moment in time is a Gloucester rugby side that can stay in games because of that, can play in the right areas, can battle in the contact area, and as a set piece, which is very competitive, particularly the scrum. And because of that, you know, we're winning games, and we're in tight games. What we will add to that as the season goes on, and hopefully into next season, is more rugby. You know, play a little bit more in certain areas. There were probably 6 or 7 occasions on the weekend where we could have played a little bit more, but we've had to bring this team from a side that played very open, expansive rugby, maybe a little bit flaky at times and not consistent enough, and we've had to maybe give it a little bit of direction, narrow down some of the options, and by doing that has made us a little bit more consistent, and now we want to add to that. And so we've made a start, but there's a long way to go, and that's the good thing. You know, we can be sitting a point off the top of the table with and being reasonably comfortable with what we've achieved, but realising there's a lot more to come from us as well.
Anybody else? There's a gentleman in the back there in the red.
Yeah, question for the coaches, really. Guys, obviously our away form has been a bit of a revelation this year compared with previous years. Have you changed anything in particular with regards to our preparation, either on the day or before the day, and while we're out there, to bring this about?
From our perspective, when we joined up together in pre-season, we looked at away form from the previous season, and myself, Carl and Nigel recognised that was a problem. At the same time, we wanted to see if we could improve that, but how we could do it in a way that worked really, and it was a bit of a gamble really. So we looked at that Friday at the end of the week, that Friday being potentially the toughest day, the day where we travelled, and we travelled for 2 to 3 hours, whether it's to Pembrey or wherever we went, and we actually did a tough session on the beach and then in the sea, and what it did was it got the guys recognising that that Friday was generally going to be a travel day, you know, stay in a hotel overnight or get ready for the game the following day. So we wanted to make that a tough day at the end of the week where there was a travel element involved in it. And my role within the strength conditioning was to assist everything that was going on in the coaching department, and the work we did was very much contact-based work on the beach with bags, tackle tubes, and grappling and wrestling, and it was a tough environment, and all 3 weeks the weather was horrendous down in West Wales, so it was a good building block for us, and whether that carried over I'm not sure yet, but I certainly know that the players' mindset is very tough at the moment, and going away, travelling away to these partisan crowds and partisan environments, you have to be a tough team.
I think Carl is probably best placed to answer this as well, having been here last year himself and this year.
Yeah, I think there's some key elements in the game that Nigel has changed. You know, as you said earlier, we put a huge focus on the breakdown, with and without the ball. But our ability to retain ball now is much better than previous years. And I think in the past we went out to outscore teams. You know, if you think of Kevin Keegan's football sides, they score 3, we'll go and score 4 or 5, and we had that mentality. We go out and play this pretty fancy football, and if it worked, it looked really special, but it created inconsistency, and especially away from home when some of the margins got taken away, and it broke. Too often it broke, and now we've got a resilience under Nigel, and the game plan now is a focus on a contact rate and a ball retention has brought a robustness now to our game plan that we can sit in an arm wrestle 60-70 minutes with the best sides and come out on top, and that probably wasn't the case in previous seasons.
And just finish off from me, I think we have a game plan, and we can target certain areas of our game plan within the framework that we've got, depending on who we're playing and where we're playing. And particularly when you go away from home, you have to maybe do things slightly differently, which we have been doing. And when we become a better team than we are, we'll be less reliant on changing things. But right now we need to be very specific in what we target, particularly when we go away from home and play in a specific way. Probably the most physical week we've had to date has been the week leading up to the London Welsh game, because I knew how tough and physical that game was going to be, and you know, because of the week we had leading into that, it certainly paid dividends in terms of the mental toughness and focus that the boys had going into that game.
Yeah, it's certainly a big difference for the Welsh game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Gentleman down here.
It's been very noticeable this year how much more seriously you've taken the A-team games, which has been great for us who go along and watch them. What was the thinking behind that?
I mean, a lot of part of this philosophy, I mean, it actually started in teen, believe it or not. And when we got there, we were asked whether we could put a coaching rugby team into the local touch game that was going on. There was a competition at the end of the week, so we put a coaching team in, only to realise that we were in a competition with semi-pro players from France. And it was beach touch as well, which made it a little bit more difficult. But the fact that we'd committed to it as a coaching group, playing against a lot of younger players, I wouldn't say necessarily highly skilled players, but certainly younger players who could run. And as a coaching group, you know, I think we really showed our commitment to win that game, and we actually got to the final, and we lost in the final. And probably the reason we lost is because we used Mike as our super sub, who hadn't played up until that point, and he let us down a little bit. But I think it's creating that winning mentality as much as anything else, you know, and realising that every game we play in, every time we play as Gloucester Rugby players, whether we're the coaches, or the A team or the B team, that we go out there to win, and that's part of the philosophy. But more importantly is that you know, we have played strong A teams allowed us to give opportunities in games to maybe some of the senior players who hadn't had opportunities at that stage, and allowed us to have a better structure within those 8-team games because we had more experienced players helping some of the younger players develop as well. So that's part of the rationale. But the main focus, it's like the sevens. You know, we just got to breed a mentality, a winning mentality, and whatever we do it to win.
Nigel, would you feel prepared to explain how we nearly ended up with no director of rugby at the end of the pre-season? We had a bit of a mishap on the pre-season tour.
Oh yeah. What we went to Teen, and it was a fab. I don't know if you've ever been to Teen. First time for me to experience it, but it's a ski resort, 2,500 feet up in the French Alps. Fantastic place, and it was obviously summertime. And there's a lot of adventure activities there, and one of them is whitewater rafting. Now, I've been whitewater rafting in this country, and there's lots of health and safety laws which ensure that it's not too dangerous. But I can assure you, out in Teen, it was pretty hairy. And the guide of our boat, there were 6 of us on the boat, decided he saw a rock in the middle of this fast-flowing river. He decided to go for the rock and try and get the front end of the raft up, which he did, in fairness. But in doing so, I fell off the back. And I fell off the back, and the boat came back down. So there was fast-flowing river. The boat was stuck there. I had a buoyancy aid, so I came back up, and I was stuck under the boat. Now, I was pretty panicked myself, but the boys reckon I was under for about 30-odd seconds. And I didn't feel like 30 seconds, but that's what they said. And I thought I was a goner. I really did. But eventually, I could hear somebody screaming. It was the guide who was telling all the boys to go to one side of the boat so that the pressure of the boat allowed me to pop up. And it was pretty hairy. It was pretty, but it was good.
We won't be doing that one again next season. Nearly cost us an England international as well, and was one stuck in there.
Yeah, Charlie Sharp was running with me as well.
I think it's probably a good time to take the first Twitter question here. There's a gentleman called Eddie has tweeted in to say, I think this is one for you, Nigel. Why do you think Billy Twelvetrees has made such a difference at centre, and what's his impact been?
He's a good student of the game. He's got a very good all-round game at 12. He's played at 10 as well, so he understands how important communicating from 12 into 10 is. Because quite often, your 10's field of vision he's looking at the breakdown, he's waiting for the ball to come out. He doesn't always click the picture and what's behind him. And if you've got a good 12 who's got a little bit more time on the ball, he can help click that picture and feed Billy some information. So he's a natural 10 and a 12, so he's got that. His physicality is fantastic, his core skills in the physical game are superb. He's got a great distribution game, and he's got a kicking game as well. So, and defensively he's solid. So he brings quite a lot to the party when you're looking at 12s. And I think that relationship with Freddie works well as well. They're both good students of the game. They it's interesting to hear them talk. They'll watch video clips together and have a good view of games and opposition and how we need to play. And they enjoy that side of things as well. So that helps them develop as rugby players. So Billy has got a fantastic all-round game. He's a great student of the game. He's a tough boy. And he's a competitor. And what's what I love about this Gloucester team at the moment, we've got lots of competitors in the side who want to win. And sometimes when maybe we're lacking a little bit of finesse right now, but we've got plenty of guts and determination to get us through.
Another question that came in advance on email. This is one for you, Carl. The forwards were very much written off by the so-called experts in the media. No offence to Nick, who's at the back there. I don't think you were one of them, actually, Nick. How much has that motivated you and the players?
Yeah, I think we've got a good group, really good group, and I think we've got a lot of strength and depth now. We've got some fellas up front, especially front five, that are young, up-and-coming players, and I think, sort of Nigel alluded to earlier, through A games, through LV games and Amlin games, they've all got opportunities, and what you want as a management team is you want competition for places. You want to be able to offset one from another, and just everybody keeps raising the bar, and that's what I think we've got. We might not have superstar names, but we've got a group of players that are collectively working together, and they're just keeping pushing the bar up week in, week out. And we can probably select from a group of 18 to 20 forwards now, and you get a level of consistency, and that's excellent and ideal for us.
Come back out to the floor. Oh, there's two gentlemen. Well, the gentleman at the back just slightly quicker on the draw there.
For you, Nigel, in past years we've been frustrated. We got after Christmas, and just when we want to start putting our foot down and move on, we've had talking about contracts and whatever. And I personally am very pleased to see that you've addressed this before Christmas and got it out of the way. And perhaps you'd like to tell us how that's gone. And secondly, looking through the squad, you've mentioned this week, unusually we've got 9 Premiership front rowers. We started off with quite a lot of wingers, but a few got injured, but we still probably got enough. The 2 positions we probably like for cover is the 2 we have potential internationals in the second row. And Freddie, as much as we'd love to see him get an England cap, we're going to miss him against Saracens. And for God's sake, I hope we don't make his debut against the All Blacks. I had a mate of mine who made his 18-year-old debut for Wales at fullback against the All Blacks, and he only played once again for Wales.
Well, I made my Welsh debut against New Zealand out there, so that was quite an experience. So you'll be all right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, contract negotiations start earlier and earlier every year. There's a lot of competition, and I think the fact that you know we've been riding reasonably high in the table has attracted a lot of attention of some of our players. You know, there are some clubs who are mercenaries out there, and you know, that's what we're competing against. What we've got, I think, is a group of players right now who are enjoying what they're doing at Gloucester, who want to stay at Gloucester. So it's a good time really to be in negotiations with these guys. The priorities have been to secure the group of players who are out of contract from within the current squad. Now those negotiations are still ongoing. You know, every day that's moving on. At this moment in time, I'd have to say is pretty positive from what, you know, the way I'm looking at it. There are still 3 or 4 issues that need to be resolved before we then go and look at maybe other areas. Yeah, you know, again, try not to be too specific because it can affect other people, particularly in those positions. But there are certain positions that we are looking to strengthen without a shadow of a doubt. And we don't have to be a rocket scientist to realise where they are. The interesting thing will be is how we strengthen those positions. You know, there are a number of ways you can do that. You can bring in maybe experienced players who generally cost a lot of money and are generally at the back end of their careers, and you question sometimes why they want that contract. Or do you look at some younger, hungrier players who you think you can develop and bring up in the ethos of the club, who will be more committed because they want it a bit more. So trying to get that balance right is important as well. You know, it's and when you look at certain positions, second rows being one, you know, there's not as if there's a lot of guys out there who are out of contract who are available. But you know, so part of the recruitment process is to look at what's out there at every level we can and get a good idea based on what we want from those positions, and then make those calls. So it's the recruitment process is not just about sitting down with players and talking to players. It's about actually identifying players that you think can fit the bill for us moving forward, and that takes a lot of research to begin with. I didn't bring these here on purpose, but these are actually tapes of players that we'll be looking at over the next couple of days, and that's an ongoing process, you know. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes there, even before we get to sit down with a player or his agent. But yeah, you know, the way we've done it this year is focus on the guys who are out of contract, who we want to re-sign, who will form the core of this team for the next 2 to 3 years. That's been fundamental to it. As I say, reasonably happy with how that's gone. And then after that, we'll see what's left over. We'll see where we can maybe bring in some quality and prioritise in 1 or 2 positions, as you say.
Thank you. There's a question for Paddy, which is coming from Tom on Twitter, which is he would say that you set out to make Gloucester the fittest squad in the league. how do you feel you're progressing on that?
I think it's every coach's desire, from the coach themselves to the fitness coaches, the fitness department, to have the fittest team. I think a lot of hard work goes into it, but at this level it's very difficult to quantify. What we do is we have a lot of all the players will be monitored with their heart rates. A vast number of them will be monitored on GPS, so we can see the improvements all the time and daily and in games. But I think the percentages and margins are so tight at this level, at the elite level, whether it's gymnastics to football, to American football, to rugby, the margins are tiny. So it's how you can maximise the player's potential by doing the small things and making those small gains, and that's where you see the bigger differences. My role is to assist the coaches, is to guide the players and to give them boundaries, and I think possibly the biggest area is in discipline. I think if you look at kids nowadays in schools, if you want to get a school that's not really competing well or doing well academically, you bring a good headmaster. And I think Nigel's been that person to come into Gloucester and to actually change things. But within that, myself and Carl and the rest of the coaches have got a big role in making sure the discipline's right, because the players thrive on discipline. They'll be better players for it.
Okay, thank you. Should we go back out to the floor? Gentleman here in the middle, waiting patiently.
This time of year is a strange time of year. Players go off to play international rugby. So the question is the pros and cons of that for you as a coaching team, and indeed whether you have time or the interest to spend any time watching that international rugby and drawing from it.
Yeah, it is interesting. And sometimes you get players that are away for long periods, for a month, and you don't see them for a month, and they may have really positive experiences. If they're going away with national sides that win, where in the past we've had a lot of players go away with Scotland that don't necessarily win. So there is a readjustment period, but it is difficult. Recently we've had players going back and forward from England. I can think of Ben Morgan recently, and he came back and played outstandingly well. But I think that's testament to the culture we're developing here, is that players want to come back and they want to play for Gloucester and want to play for the jersey. And that's really key. And if that ingredient here is not quite right, then you probably don't get the performances that we've seen out of some of our returning players. And I can name a number of them. Say, Freddie's been away, Billy Twelvetree's been away, Ben Morgan, Quera, Hugh went away for a week with Fiji and came back and played really well. So I think when players want to come back and play for the club, there isn't a huge problem. If players are away for long periods of time, and I say they do have, if they have positive experiences on the national side, it's great because they want to come back and they want to play. If they've had negative experiences, then they just need a little bit of management, a little bit of readjustment through that time. But it is a challenge. It's a management challenge as anything else.
Just on that as well, Freddie's already been in touch with me and said that if he doesn't get more than about 10 or 20 minutes on the weekend, can he play on Sunday? So, in fairness. So that's just testament to what Carl was saying there. I mean, from my point of view, I'm used to all my team going away at international period, so just having one or two is brilliant, it's not too much of a disruption.
Going back over to Twitter, we've got one coming here from Mrs. Trellis of Tunbridge Wells, who says, I've paid good money for this, and so far all you've done is rabbit on about rugby. Please can the panel hurry up and take their clothes off? Mrs. Trellis, I fear you have the wrong webcast. Right, joking aside, we had an email question earlier on from Chris Donnelly, who I know is watching this, and in fact it was his idea that we did the webcast, so thank you very much. And Nigel, this is one for you, a slightly delicate question. He said, given the run of results which Wales have had, what would you do if you get the call? And would you be looking for Welsh ancestors in the pedigrees of some of our players?
No, I mean, Wales are okay now. Warren's back, so they're okay. They're fine. I've been asked this a few times. I mean, the thing for me is I've come to Gloucester to make, or try and make, this a success for me and the team, you know, and we'll succeed together. It won't be just about me or anybody else. It'll be about the group of us working together and the players as well. As far as I'm concerned, I haven't got credentials to coach internationally yet. I need to succeed at a club-based level, and you know, coaching internationally, Wales or anybody else, is the last thing on my mind right now. It's all about Gloucester and being successful for Gloucester, you know, I'm really enjoying my time here. It's everything that I thought it would be, and a lot more in all aspects, without going into detail and boring you all. And that's the important thing, you know. I coach internationally as an attack coach, and you know, that's great. But you know, it can be a tough place as well. And I'm not saying at some stage I wouldn't have ambitions to go back or coach internationally, but right now, for the next 3 years, my focus is firmly on Gloucester and trying to make a success of what we have here. And I firmly believe, you know, everything is here for us to be successful and drive this hard, and that's what we've got to do as senior managers within the coaching setup, is to drive this to get success. I can't even think about anything else. There's too much work to do here. You know.
Come back out to the floor. Anybody else? A gentleman down the front here.
Thank you. Nigel, being a sort of passionate Welshman, have you been surprised by the passion here in Gloucester? I mean, how would the passion at the Leicester game compare with anything you've experienced in the past?
Yeah, you know, I have to say that you know, we're supposedly renowned in Wales for the passion, but there's not many a place which is better than Kingsholm when you know, when you see what happened when we played Leicester and the passion of the supporters. You know, it's very difficult to compete with, really. I think it's fantastic. All the players who've come from outside of this country and have been amazed, really, by how passionate the supporters are. I was obviously aware. I played here many a year ago myself, and coached here with teams, and you know, you're sort of aware of it. But you know, I've just been blown away myself. I think it's a fabulous asset to have, particularly if we can get our supporters behind us, which we're doing in the main at the moment, and it's fabulous to be involved in a team that can do that and generate that type of passion. I love the fact that we're in the city. You know, I think that's a key ingredient to it as well. And people can just walk up here from the local bars and pubs, and there is no place like Kingsholm. You know, that Leicester game said it all to me from a club perspective. There is no place. In Wales, you know, there are a lot of new stadiums which are great when they're full, but they very seldom get full. And we don't get many away support, or Wales don't get much away support in the Pro 12. What we do get here, and what we did have when we played Leicester, is two cities going at it, hammer and tong, and their supporters wanting to see that. And I thought it was a great advert for the game of rugby. And a lot of people from back home have commented on that as well. You know, a lot of people are starting to watch Gloucester because they know me and associate with me, and they were just blown away by the intensity and the atmosphere of that game.
I think just to add to that as well, I remember speaking to Jimmy Cowan in the dressing room after the game, and he was just, he kept jumping up and down saying how awesome it was and how different it was from what he'd experienced. You know, and Jimmy's obviously travelled the world playing rugby through New Zealand and through Super 15, and he said he's never felt or experienced such an atmosphere where it's so close to him and so intense, and he just thought it was mind-blowing and awesome. So it's, you know, it's testament to yourselves. I can stay on his feet.
Carl, there's a question we had earlier on email. Probably a good time for that. I'm not sure whether you're going to want to single anybody out, but who do you think has made the most progress out of the forwards so far this season?
I think there's been some real key additions. You know, I don't like singling people out, because I think, especially forward play within a team, it's all about the collective effort. You know, but I think people like you have brought something different. You know, they've brought that dynamic ball carrying element. I think Sione Kalamafoni has brought just a power that we've probably lacked in the past. So everybody that's come in has added something different to the mix. But I also think too, a lot of the young fellas have stepped up. You know, you talk about Jan Thomas is playing in A-team, Dan Murphy's that played a lot more rugby this year than he has in the past, and these guys have delivered, you know, and that's what I said earlier. You want everybody striving, and you can't afford to have a starting 8 and then not much behind that. We've got 16, 17, 18 players now that are really pushing each other, and that's what you want. And I say, if you ever get an opportunity to come up on a Tuesday morning and the boys knock hell out of each other, you know, because they are competitive and everybody wants to start, you know, everybody wants to start in Jersey. And you know, through Nigel's management, we've been able to create opportunities for players, because players want to play the game. And the worst thing you can be is a professional trainer, where you train, and you never get an opportunity to play. Every player needs that carrot. Everybody needs that shot at the opportunity to start, and whether that's in Amlin, LV, guys have been given these opportunities, and they're just getting better and better. And you know, that's where you want.
Come back out to the floor. Any questions? You're in strike now.
I think one of the things that's characterised Gloucester this season for me is seeing the likes of Peter Buxton and Ross Moriarty, whether it be in an A-team game or in the pouring rain down in Swansea, where you've got a gnarled old pro and a youngster with his career in front of him playing in the same team, playing shoulder to shoulder and playing very successfully. What does that present to you as a group of coaches, dealing with the senior pro who's in the second team, if you like, at times, and the youngster who's really pushing and actually came on in a first team game then on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's great, and what we've said all along is that whenever you wear the Gloucester jersey, whatever the team, it's irrelevant. You know, it's about manning up, it's about performing. I think the phrase you use there, shoulder to shoulder, is one I've used on several occasions in the changing room, because these guys have got to look at each other, know they've got to go out and do battle on the field for each other. And it's great when you see, as you say, you know, two extremes on the field battling for each other, because, you know, I really think we're creating a bit of a cause at the moment within the group. You know? And for Peter Buxton to do what he's doing at his age is phenomenal, really. And the way that he's leading that group of players is fantastic. You know, normally you see people wanting to hide away and have a quiet life, but Peter, in fairness to him, he's been phenomenal. And he's a great mentor for those younger players as well. And they love him. They absolutely love him for the fact that he's prepared to give them time, sit down with them, and then he'll go on the field and he'll battle with them. So that's very important. And I think, you know, we will always get measured on success in terms of the league as much as anything else. And we're very mindful of that. But every game is equally important to us whenever we play. And it helps create the desire to play for Gloucester, whether you're 34 or 19. So that's important.
Gentleman in the blue coat here.
Good evening, Nigel. Last forum we talked about managing the referee, and you commented about the accommodation. I just thought it was really different last game when we played Sale, when we had the referee on our side almost, with every scrum decision going our way. And I was really pleased to see Cowan, especially, in my view, pointing out to the referee some of the penalties that we should be awarded. So can I just say that I welcome that, and is that a strategy now of the club? Because as well as managing the players, we also, as you probably realise, have to manage the officials and the game.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot to it. I mean, first of all, after every game, we're expected to put in a report in terms of what we felt about the referee. Now, I think, Chris, you said a couple of weeks ago you went to a meeting where we were the best. Well, we were the best team at actually putting reports in. We put more reports in than anybody else. So I think that helps. You know, that's a start to it. I mean, they don't actually do anything, but at least we put in reports in. At least we're complaining. The other thing is on field management is how the players manage the referee, and as I say, people like Jimmy Cowan are particularly good at doing that. and that's great. The other thing is perception. I think perception is a big thing as well. And initially, you may or may not have been aware, but I spoke a lot about our scrum and the power of our scrum and how I felt, you know, we had a dominant scrum, and I said that publicly quite a lot in the press, in the paper. And referees have a perception then about it. Now that we are a team that are in the top 4, I believe we'll get refereed a little bit fairer, and that's down to perception. So there's there's a lot of subtlety around some of it. You know, it's being nice to the referee, of course, for the most point, and trying to keep Paul Moriarty away from the referee. But I think it's a host of things, you know. And you know, our players are getting smarter, getting cleverer, you know, and it's not, you know, the game is as a famous, I wouldn't say mentor, but somebody that I looked up to, you know, Karen James, who coached the Scots, coached the Lions very successfully, and his famous phrase was, "It's a thinking man's game," and I think it's very much the case, and it's not just about what they see and how the game is going on, but you have to influence other factors that influence the game. And you know, there's no doubt in tight games, referees will influence the outcomes in the large majority of them, so we have to be on board, we have to be on side, and we have to be ensuring he makes the right decisions if we can. But it is a huge factor, huge factor.
I think we could just add to any referees who are watching on the webcast, we think you're doing a wonderful job. Thank you very much. So a question came in earlier for Paddy, a technical question really. Nigel spoke recently of using the LV Cup weeks to do some more conditioning work with some of the players. What did that consist of, Paddy?
Yeah, it was a 2 to 3 week opportunity for us to offload the guys from some of their rugby. They still had to do the majority of the sessions, but you could offload them from some of the sessions to get some extra conditioning work, and in that time we did a lot of anaerobic games. Anaerobic games is a way of transferring high intensity running and skill based games with their gym work, and we did a good sort of two to three sessions of those a week, on top of another 2 to 3 sessions of extra gym. Now the players generally will do 2 to 3 sessions of weights a week anyway, but this 2 to 3 week period has allowed us just to give us, or give the players the extra 1 or 2 weight sessions that would allow them to go into the next block in better condition. And I think physically the players would feel they struggled during the weeks doing it, but they felt the benefits of it last week, and then hopefully this weekend as well. But thanks for that question. I haven't had many, so you must be feeling sorry for me.
Come back out to the floor. Any questions for Paddy? There you are, Paddy.
Good evening. We seem to have an eclectic mix of ages in the team, like going from the youngsters of quite young to the more elderly amongst the players. Is there any difference in the way you treat the training between the age groups of the the really young ones and the really not elderly but more experienced? Yeah, that's a good word. That
To answer your question, my philosophy is it's a team sport, so 90% of the time you have to get everyone buying into the same philosophy, the same culture, the same work rate, because they've got to do that on a Saturday. And if we start looking at trying to change things for too many players, all of a sudden you have an intensity on a Saturday that they just can't manage. So my philosophy is 90% of the time is for the guys to be buying into what we're trying to do and what we're trying to generate within the conditioning element. Now that's not to say that there's international players who we have to look after, because that level of intensity you have to cater for. You're ramping up again from Heineken to international rugby, and in the Premiership it's that step up. So those guys have competed at a higher level, you have to look into how you can cater for them slightly. There are guys who are older within the team that we have to look at managing, and what we'll do is we'll look to unload them from running sometimes and get them on their own machines, get them on the watt bikes, get them on the ski erg, or any unloaded weights we can do. And just by tweaking the environment that they're in, they actually feel looked after, and they feel they can go into the Saturday just as energetic. In a way, you're tricking them, and that would be my answer to you. You have to try and manage those players, but still get the work from them. I hope that answers your question.
And a question coming in here on from Charles Curtis on Twitter. Would you be able to give us an update on the injuries which we've had? Maybe that's one for you, Nigel.
Yeah. We've obviously Alex Brown had some. He was operated on last Saturday, and the outcome of that is that he won't be available for the rest of the season. And we'll monitor Alex's progress over the next coming months, really, to see how that goes. Johnny May, he should be available any time now, and we hope he'll play a part in one of the Amlin games to put him back into contention for selection then for the next round of league fixtures after this weekend. What else are we looking at? Ollie Morgan, yeah, he showed good improvement over the last 6 weeks from being after the operation and the infection that he had after the operation, which has set him back a little bit. But he's walking around now, and we're just about to have a meeting to pull all the medical staff together to give a real firm programme in terms of stages that we expect from Ollie, in order to see whether we can get him back playing by the start of next season. So that's the aim there. Sean Knight is obviously back, he's just come back. Darren is in contention for selection this weekend, to give us another option at hooker. Henry Trinder, he is about 3 weeks away from coming back. Sinbad obviously had an operation recently. He's out anything between 3 to 4 months, which is a bit of a shame, because particularly with his form. But there we are. There's opportunities for other players, and that's the one thing that we've tried to instill in this group of players and coaches, is that we adapt, and we get on with it, and we don't complain, we don't whinge. If a player's not available, then there's another player that can come in. So that's one of the philosophies that we've had this year. I feel it's working very well for us. I think it's very easy to complain about things and whinge about things. All of us can do that, including me. But if we just get on with it and adapt to it, then we've got more chance of dealing with it. Anybody else? Just because there's quite a few injuries. Ryan Mills, yeah, he had an operation at the start of the year. We're hoping he'll be available by February. Yeah, there's a chance he'll be available. He has to pass his COG sport test, which is which is a test that everybody.
Do that on an Australian.
Yeah. Well, we couldn't get a baseline for him, but.
Is Tim Taylor available the weekend?
Yes. Yeah, Tim's available. Yeah, Tim's available.
Okay, let's come back up.
Would you like to comment on Andy Hazel? Because I fully understand legally why they couldn't cite a Frenchman, because you couldn't actually see the guy who gouged the eye. But to any reasonable person, he was gouged, the evidence seemed to be there. I mean, if somebody gouged me, I'd still be whacking him now, So I thought he got a very harsh ban for a guy who's, we all know is a fabulous guy, he's not a thug, and he was absolutely pushed to the limits. I just think he got double what he should have done. I don't know what your view is. Okay. That's taken from as a magistrate.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's all right then.
I think, as we all know, Hazy plays right on the edge, and he has done for years, and I think his disciplinary record is excellent. I think the issue ERC had was it was so visual. They had to be seen to be doing something as a governing body. You know, they've got a responsibility to promote the sport, and you know, people that have got young sons and young daughters that want to play the game, ERC do have a responsibility. As much we all feel for Hazy, you know, and we'd love to have him back as soon as possible, I think they probably had a responsibility to the game as such because it was so visual. And I understand your take on provocation, but if there's no evidence, it's very difficult to prove it. Yeah, well, I say I'll pass this over to Nigel because I wasn't at the disciplinary hearing, so I'll duck that one, Nigel.
Well, I've already got myself into trouble with the ERC, so I'm not going to go there, I'm afraid. It's a difficult one, it's a very sensitive one. I was hugely frustrated with the whole event. And, you know, as Hoggy said, I think when you look at his incident in isolation, you know, it's not pretty. And I would say he deserved that ban in isolation. But when you look at the provocation leading up to that, then I think you have to take other things into consideration, which I do, absolutely, which I don't believe were. You know, that regardless of the gouging incidents, there were a couple of incidents off the ball which were clear to see, which we felt should have been cited, which weren't. But you know, I think the important thing is we put that behind us. We've accepted the punishment. Hazy's accepted the punishment. He knows it was wrong to do what he did, which it was. And that, you know, two wrongs don't make a right, so we can't say anything else to that. But you know, Hazy's been great this year. He's been fantastic. You know, he's been really energised, and you know, he's working hard at the moment with Paddy. It's unfortunate for these guys when they get injured or they get banned. Paddy gets hold of them and takes them to the next level. So I'm sure when he comes back, interestingly, I think his ban is up when we play Montemarsan in the home game here. So that will be an interesting fixture.
Come back out to the floor. Any more questions out here? That's a bit of a draw there. Yes, the gentleman at the back. Sorry, sir. We'll come back to you in a moment.
Quick on the draw. Yeah, it's a pity Hazy wasn't all black. You'd been let off, wouldn't you, I expect? Actually, give the guys a bit of a break. Question for Chris with regards to the World Cup bid. It'd be fantastic to get World Cup rugby back here at King's Own. Obviously, last time was 1990, wasn't it? Where are we with that bid, and what additional hoops will we have to jump through to actually perhaps get over the winning line there and get some games awarded to us?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. That's my pet subject. Yeah, that's it's obviously something that we've been working pretty hard on, actually, for a number of years. If you look back at the internationals that we've put on just to get to this point, to demonstrate that we could do that, that was part of Ken Oster's philosophy, to try and make sure that when this came around, we were ready. As I think everybody in the room's aware, we're the last club on the short list now for venues. They call it the long list, but it's actually the short list. It'll go from the current 17 down to a maximum of 12 venues in the final selection process. Now, my understanding of that is it's going to be the end of March before that selection's finished. We've made an initial submission. What happened was a panel from England Rugby 2015 came to King's Own with a lot of clipboards. A lot of people came and they went through absolutely every aspect of the stadium to make sure it met their criteria. So we filled in a questionnaire in advance of that, but they more wanted to see it for themselves, so they went through all aspects of the stadium. And that's where things like the size of the pitch, for example, were winkled out, where I know there was the fuss with Leicester over the size of the pitch, but there's a minimum standard set by the IRB as to how big pitches have to be for the Rugby World Cup, and if you don't meet that criterion, then frankly you can't have a game. My understanding is it's as simple as that. Anyway, the stadium did measure up for all the criteria which they set. So then the baton got passed to the City Council, who were excellent here. I would have to say that Paul James and Julian Wayne really sort of pulled their team together to make a strong bid from a City point of view, because they've got to look after things like, it's things that you wouldn't anticipate, like ambush marketing. They've got to say, have you got the trading standards officers in place to make sure that the venue doesn't turn into a shambles when sort of around its edges when the games are being played, and what accommodation can the surrounding area provide for visiting fans and teams, etc. So there's, in many ways, there's more to do on the City side than there was on the stadium side, and that process took a while to get to its completion. And I know they put a strong bid in, because that was when we got onto this next shortlist. But now there's another round of negotiation, which is effectively where they shed the next 5 stadiums from that, and all we can do is just go with the process and see where we get to. I don't want to say too much here, but I've detected a lot of goodwill towards us from the RFU. I think the RFU, sometimes a rather maligned organisation, they would like to see traditional rugby clubs participating in the World Cup. They're setting up legacy boards to try and make sure that there is an influence in the region after the Rugby World Cup has been and gone. So they take some of the money and some of the goodwill from the tournament and try and turn it into sort of general thing. It's not just about getting kids playing rugby, it's also social inclusion and trying to promote fitness and sort of general well-being among the kids. And many of the things that our community department does now, actually, but on a grander scale. And I know that they would like to work with the clubs to do that, and also, frankly, to find training centres for the teams coming in who are going to be coming in. And we've offered Hartpury as potentially a great option, working with the guys at Hartpury who have been brilliant on this bid. So, I mean, I could talk all night about this. Obviously, it's something we should be working on very hard, but it will come together by the end of March. And I think we're as strong a position now as we can be. But we have to accept that we're pretty much half the size of the next smallest venue in the bidding at this stage. And clearly, if more tickets could be sold for a game at another venue, that's a pretty big commercial call for the RFU and IRB to make, to say, well, we'll go to Kingsholm because it's a traditional home of rugby, and we'll turn away the revenue that we could have got by going to a bigger venue. But we are where we are. We've got 16,000 capacity. We're not going to build any more stands before the Rugby World Cup. Everybody knows that, and that's probably what the decision hinges on, is can the overall tournament stand having probably a smaller venue in there for the character and sort of colour that it brings. And at this point, I think it can. So fingers crossed.
Could we anticipate any more international rugby being anticipated in March?
Yeah, I think not before then, obviously, but we found that there's an end of season slot where the Barbarians came and played Ireland last year, and that works quite well for us. And also, frankly, the Fiji game here the other night, I think the team that we put out probably raised a few eyebrows, and then it actually made a very competitive match. And Nigel, I don't generally talk about rugby, but I think I can talk about the people side of this, that the boys who played in that game, it's very unusual to see professionals quite as energised as those guys were after that match, and the sense of satisfaction which they had from doing it, and having faced the Dimby, as they call it, the Fijians hacker, and then gone on and beaten them in quite difficult circumstances, brought some of the young men who played in that match on, I would say, a couple of years on in their rugby careers, just in one fell swoop. So it obviously fulfills a purpose, but it's difficult from a fixture point of view, because you've got to put out teams on either side of a game like that. So probably the obvious slot for us is probably the end of season game, and it's something which we would try and do again in future years, because I think there's an appetite for it. There'll be a big crowd, and people like to see international stars coming here. So yeah, we will try and do that. Come back out to the floor. Any other questions? Sorry, sir, you've been waiting patiently. Yeah.
A feature of this season has been the work at the breakdown, the contact area. You spoke about that, Nigel, in the last fans forum. What have you actually done as a coaching team to bring on this huge improvement that we've seen at the contact and breakdown area? What have you physically coached into the whole squad?
It goes right across everything we do in terms of creating a mindset for it, the language that we use around it, the work that Paddy does in the gym with the players, and the body heights that they work. When you're pumping weights or moving heavy weights, it's not just moving them, it's why you're moving them, the mechanics around that. So it starts there really, and then it transfers across into our training, a lot of technical work on that. We haven't had a huge amount of contact sessions in that area, but we do target it from time to time, and when we do contact, it's for very short periods of time, because you do risk injury when you do that type of thing. And the important thing is that the boys turn up match day and they deliver it then. And then it's also about us having a conscience from a coaching point of view, that every game we play, we code the work that the players do in the contact area. So the players know that there is a value in doing well in the contact area, whether you're a 15 or a prop. So they know that we value that, and we've got a spreadsheet that we've developed this season, which is just about finalised now. So we can tell a player how many contacts he's been to, how many times he's been redundant at that contact, i.e. not done anything, how many times he's been effective, how many times he's pushed through if we're defending, how many times he's got onto the ball. We've got a term that we call centering when we've got the ball, which helps us secure the ball early when it's our ball, how many times they've done that. So there's a whole host of areas around the contact area that we focus in on. So the players realise there is a huge value, and selection is dependent on how effective they are in that area. Our backs actually are, I would say, some of the best backs in the contact area in the league. Yeah, and when we get to an edge, we almost always secure the ball, and we're very effective at turning over the opposition in that area. So it's right across the board. You know, it's a big factor of the game. There's more contacts happen in the game than any other element. It's not what we look for, you know. We look to try and keep the ball alive and to put offloads in the game. But the fact is, you will have lots of contacts, and we have to be as good as we can in that area. So it's right across the board, really. It's a mindset, and we challenge ourselves as a group to be good in that area.
I think to add to that as well is when we review games or preview games, we're referring to the contact area all the time, and you know, if we're reviewing last weekend, we'll look at the highlights of who was most effective or most efficient in the breakdown. So it becomes competitive when the playing group twos, they want to be in that highlights reel in the review, you know, and we show odd clips where players have done it poorly, but mostly it's positive reinforcement, and guys want to be king of the contact, you know, and there's a real appetite to be the best around that area as an individual, you know. It's just self-fulfilling.
And this month, actually, we're going to be giving a prize out this week to the player who's been the best in the contact area, which will be a meal for two out in Gloucester or Cheltenham. So, you know, there's a real mindset that this is an important facet of our game.
This gentleman at the back here.
Is that why Mike Tyndall's been revitalised this season?
Yeah, you know, I think Mike has been great this year. I really do, and from a training perspective, he trains harder than anyone. You know, he's got. I think maybe Paddy can touch on that a little bit more in a minute. But in terms of what he's brought to the side on the field, I think he's been excellent. He's the most robust rugby player I've ever come across in my life. Because he's coaching as well, he's got to turn up early and he's got to leave late. And he's you know, I have to say, I'm in admiration of the way that he's gone about his business this year. You know, he's obviously getting on a little bit, but his performances have been great, and the work that he does defensively and in the contact area, second to none. You know, maybe Billy is slightly ahead of him, maybe not. You know, they work very hard in that area, but yeah, Mike has been fantastic, and you know, from his conditioning point of view, Paddy, he must be up there, Mike.
Yeah, the thing about Mike, he's a real competitor. So he has his program planned out from every week. We have a 4-week mesocycle with each program, and within that program, I have the weights targeted. So in week 1, I'd like you to reach 115 kgs on a front squat for 3 or 4 reps. By week 4, I'd like to reach 137.5. Come week 4, no matter how tired he is, he'll always reach that target. And even if it's just a mindset for him, he'll make sure he does it. And I think it's that competitive edge that we have in our older players that is coming through to our younger players, and there's a real great environment there for training, and there's a real purpose and intensity to everything that the players do, and he's a big part of that.
You should probably point out at this point that there's several players watching this on the live feed, because I can see what they're saying on Twitter, and at least one of them would like to be playing more golf, please. If you could arrange that. You have a guess who that is.
I'm not going to be better than him.
I'm not saying he's any good, right. So one coming from Mark here on Twitter, which is one for you, Nigel. What would an acceptable end of season position look like, bearing in mind where we are now?
Well, that's a very good question. What we said right at the start of the season as a group is that we wouldn't put any limits on what we could or couldn't achieve. We let others do that. Other people are good at doing that. We'll just carry on, go about our business. I'm not about to come out and say any different to that. You know, we've got our own internal objectives, and maybe where we are at the moment maybe highlights where those are. But you know, we're not going to. We've gone about our business very quietly this year. As lots of people have said, we weren't given much of a hope really at the start of the season, and that was great. You know, that was fine because it sort of gave us something to target and work for. We're reasonably pleased with where we are right now, but we've got a lot of work to do, and we're going to work very hard to stay in that top 4 now that we've got there. Other than that, you know, I don't want to really say much publicly. You know, we'll work hard within the group. We know where we need to be, and we know what we're capable of. I think we're capable of a lot more in terms of our performances, and you know, we just keep on striving to be better.
And this is on a related issue. There's one coming from Adam here to say, what's Nigel's best moment have been at Gloucester so far, and what are you most looking forward to? There's been a lot of great moments. You know, if we just look at the games, I'd have to say just the feeling after the Leicester game. You know, it was a big moment for us to get that result, and with the support that we had that day, it was fantastic. And see the boys come out after, you know, they'd worked so hard to get that result, and to see how the crowd reacted with them, and how they reacted with the crowd was very special. I think not just for me, but for the whole coaching team. Really. And yeah, I think that will just drive us on more to succeed, not only for ourselves but for everybody else. Just going to ask a couple more questions, and then I think it's probably time to finish. So, anybody else from the floor? Anything else you want to ask? Gentleman down at the front here.
It's a question for Paddy. In the programme, you have the list of all the different job titles amongst the staff, and there's a job title which I'm quite interested to know what they actually do. It's the injury prevention coach or something similar. What's that all about?
Yeah, it's a good point. I've got a particularly good staff within my department. It's probably easy if I go through all of them. They've all got a master's, so they're all very highly qualified sports scientists, and they're all very intelligent guys and good characters within the squad. Jamie Bain is our strength and rehab specialist, so he'll work very closely with the physios. So come on Monday, himself and myself will sit down with Bob Stewart and Adam Brett, and we'll go through the players' injuries and where the players are from their screening from the weekend before. And clearly, Jamie's role is to make sure that those players, in line with the physios, come through their rehab well and are fit to play as soon as possible. So that's his remit, is to get the guys from when they're handed over from the physios back into training as soon as possible. Eamon Highland is another top quality sports scientist, and his remit is to work on the sports science support and also the academy. He heads up the academy goal group. Within the sports science support, he's looking at anything from GPS to heart rate monitoring to RPEs, so that when the players come in every day, they give a rating of perceived exertion on every session. So from weights to swimming to rugby, they tell you how hard that session was, and he puts all the data together, and he can work out from that where the monotony of the week is, or where the strain or where the load is of that week, and we can get some good results from that. So his expertise is in that area, and he's able to feed back to myself and then straight on to Nigel as to what we need to do to improve the week in terms of intensity, or in what we need to do to maybe back off in terms of our intensity of that week. So that's really important data coming through. And then we've also got Ollie Adkins and Richard Clark. Richard Clark heads up the Silver Group along with Ollie Adkins, and they're also collecting data for us to put through to the coaches. So they're all very highly qualified guys, and I don't think we'd be in the position that we are without those small percentages that they're doing day in, day out. So again, I hope that answers your question. That's the main emphasis on what we do with our backup team.
It may be worth highlighting that a couple of those guys are interns, aren't they?
Yeah, Ollie Adkins and Richard Clark are both interns, so they give up their time for free. So they're with us for a year, and we're very lucky to have them because they don't actually get paid for any of the work that they do, and they're here, you know, from 6:30 in the morning through till 7:30 at night when they finish with the academy. And a lot of work goes unnoticed sometimes, not by us, but by other people within the club who maybe don't realise the hard work that some people do voluntarily in order to become top-class fitness coaches in their own time in the future. Interestingly, Eamon Highland, who is now the sports science and heads up the academy, he was an intern at the beginning of the year, and he took over from Tom Drowley, so his expertise has been crucial to our success.
I think that's where the game has evolved massively is through sports science, and some of the data that we receive as coaches is very informative for us, because in days gone past and going back 20-30 years, you used to do your normal rugby routine, so you train your Tuesday, Thursday nights, and then if that worked and you got a win the weekend, you just keep doing that because that's the way, you know, you're getting a winning formula. Now we get data from these fellas all about monotony and how you need to change sessions and the intensity of some sessions to then reduce in others, and I think the information that we get is absolutely critical and vital, and the way we can then manage the workload of the players and the individuals within that is really key. So you come the weekend that you've got a group of 22 players that are straining at least to go, you know, and before, without that evidence and without that support, is pretty much just routine, and now I see it's a critical factor going forward.
I think time for just one more question from the floor. Any gentleman there, quick on the draw.
Hi. One thing that's been really noticeable to me this year, Nigel, is that when the game's playing, you're stood on the touchline and not up in the stand. I just wonder whether that's because you're an inspiration for the players there, or whether you're just nervous and can't sit still.
Yeah, it's more because I can't sit still watching the game, to be honest. It's something that I personally prefer to do. You know, there's an argument for obviously sitting with a laptop and going through some of the replays, but I'm just more comfortable watching it live and making a decision based on what I see there and then. I'm getting a lot of information from above anyway. If I need some info on something, I'll ask for it, just to either reinforce or to clarify my view at that point. But also, I think I get a good feel for the intensity of the game, the talk that's going on there. At occasions, you can actually guide players if you scream hard enough at them. Yes, yeah. And also you get a feel for, you know, the condition of players, can talk to the subs as they go on because they're making an impact. You know, I firmly believe that you've got to be very careful with intervention in terms of, you know, you can be viewing a game for 20 minutes before we can actually get anybody on the field who can actually say anything to them. And in that time, there might have been 6 or 7 instances that you want to talk about. Well, you can't, you know, you can't go back, and so you have to be very careful what you actually get onto the field. And again, part of our philosophy is to get the players to adapt to what they're seeing on the field, and part of our training is to get them to make decisions. So, you know, our intervention really is at half-time. That's the biggest time we can make an intervention, or when we put some subs on, because we can have, you know, given them a fair amount of information. So we have to be very careful with what we can actually say when we get information onto the players and who we say it to, of course. But for me, I feel better there. I feel a bit closer to the players. You know, ultimately I am responsible for performance, so I want them to feel that I'm, at least, I would never go on the field. Jesus Christ, not these days. But as close as I can get, and just show support, I suppose, as well.
finish, I've just got a question that has come in from outside, which I'd like to ask for the whole panel. If you were to sum up your first few months as a coaching team in this job, what grade would you give yourselves?
Well, I must answer that. I mean, it's not about me, but it's about my coaching team. And you know, we came together late, obviously, and there's a lot of pitfalls in that. But the way that the coaching team has gelled, the way the group has worked for each other, and the overlap in terms of skill set, for me, as somebody who's heading it up, has been excellent. And in my position, I'm not grading as a group, but my coaches and how they've worked for me, they've been excellent. I couldn't have hoped or wished for any better, because you know, 6 months ago we didn't know each other, and we've had to come together as a team off the field to create something on the field. And you know, I feel that this group have worked exceptionally hard to be able to do that, and I'm very, very proud to be part of this group at this moment in time. I don't think we can say much more than that.
I think everybody would probably echo those thoughts, and I think I could probably lead everybody by saying thank you very much to all the team at Harbury. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. I think myself and the gentleman to my right will be around for a few minutes if you want to have a quick chat with us. But thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for the next game.
C minus must do better.
That's you.
Carl is easily distracted in class.